Imagine for a moment that everything you have saved, the very foundation of your family's future, is suddenly declared illegal, not by a thief in the night, but by the very government sworn to protect you. The year is 1933. To become a felon in the United States of America, you didn't need to rob a bank or commit murder. You simply needed to have a few gold coins in your pocket. This was the moment the American dream flickered into an American nightmare. One of the greatest wealth transfers in history was about to take place in plain sight, with the stroke of a single pen. Why would the land of the free seize the one asset its citizens trusted most? The answer is far darker and far more calculated than you might expect. To understand the heist, we must first visit the crime scene. The Great Depression. By early 1933, America was caught in an economic apocalypse. The machinery of capitalism had ground to a halt. Banks were collapsing like dominoes. Panic swept through the streets as millions rushed to withdraw their life savings, only to find locked doors and empty vaults. Faith in paper currency had evaporated. People trusted only one thing: gold, God's money, the only asset that governments couldn't print into worthlessness. And so, naturally, everyone began to hide it. They buried it in gardens, hid it in mattresses, and locked it in private safes. But to the new administration in Washington, this desperate act of self-preservation wasn't prudence, it was treason. When Franklin D. Roosevelt took office, he faced an impossible equation. The economy was trapped in a deflationary death spiral. Prices were plummeting, spending had stopped, and money wasn't moving. To restart the engine, the government needed to flood the system with cash. But there was a massive problem. They couldn't. The culprit was the gold standard. Under the law, every paper dollar printed had to be backed by gold in the treasury. As long as citizens hoarded the gold in their homes, the government's hands were tied. They could not print the money needed to fund their ambitious recovery plans. They faced a brutal choice: watch the system collapse or seize the private property of the people. They chose the latter, and they moved with terrifying speed. April 5, 1933. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. It remains to this day one of the most controversial documents in American financial history. The directive was blunt and uncompromising. The hoarding of gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates is hereby prohibited. Every citizen was ordered to surrender their gold to the Federal Reserve by May 1st. In exchange, they would receive paper currency, specifically $20.67 per ounce. The government was essentially saying, "Give us your real money, and we will give you our paper promises." But it wasn't the trade that terrified people. It was the threat. Violators faced a fine of $10,000 or 10 years in prison. To put that in perspective, $10,000 in 1933 had the purchasing power of nearly $250,000 today. The message was clear: comply or be destroyed. Panic rippled across the nation. Terrified of being branded criminals, citizens lined up for blocks, hauling satchels of coins and bullion to the banks. They surrendered family heirlooms, wedding gifts, and life savings. Yet, not everyone knelt. Some buried their treasure deeper in the woods. Others smuggled it to Switzerland. And one man, an attorney named Frederick Barber Campbell, did something even bolder. He sued the United States government. Campbell refused to surrender 27 bars of gold. His argument was simple and grounded in the Constitution. This is my private property. But the government's response was ruthless. They argued that in times of national emergency, the collective survival outweighed individual rights. The courts, and eventually the Supreme Court, sided with the administration. Under the banner of national emergency, private property rights were effectively suspended. Campbell lost. The precedent was set. The state owned the money. You were merely a user. And this is where the story reveals its most brilliant and devastating magic trick: the Great Heist. By 1934, the government had collected the vast majority of the nation's gold. The people now held only paper dollars. The trap was set. FDR then executed the second phase of the plan, the Gold Reserve Act. Overnight, the government officially changed the price of gold. The very same gold they had forced you to sell for $20.67 was now declared to be worth $35 an ounce. What did this mean? It was a masterclass in financial engineering. By simply revaluing the gold they now possessed, the Treasury instantly created nearly $3 billion in profit out of thin air. This was a massive devaluation of the dollar. The paper money people had received in exchange for their gold was now worth significantly less in real terms. The citizenry had been effectively taxed without a vote, transferring immense wealth from private savers to the public purse. This windfall funded the New Deal. It built dams, bridges, and highways. It put Americans back to work. But let's be clear about the source of that capital. It was extracted from the savings of the American people through a forced liquidation. This massive influx of confiscated bullion created a logistical problem. They needed a place to put it all. And so, the United States Bullion Depository was built at Fort Knox, a fortress designed to guard the loot of 1933. How long did this emergency measure last? You might think a few years. In reality, it remained illegal for American citizens to own monetary gold for 41 years. It wasn't until 1974 that President Gerald Ford finally repealed the ban. But by then, the world had changed. The discipline of the gold standard had been eroded, step by step, until Nixon severed the final link in 1971. The operation of 1933 did more than just seize metal. It fundamentally altered our relationship with money. Money was no longer a physical store of value owned by the individual. It became a belief system entirely dependent on the promises of the state. Look at the cash in your wallet today. It says Federal Reserve Note. It is an instrument of debt. It is currency, not money. And as history shows, the rules governing it can change overnight. The lesson of 1933 is stark. Financial systems are fragile constructs, and in times of crisis, the rules will always change in favor of the rule makers. The people who lost their gold believed their government would protect their savings. Instead, they learned a hard truth. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Consider your digital bank balance, your retirement accounts, your safe deposit boxes. In the next great emergency, are they truly safe? Or is history waiting to repeat itself? In 1933, when the knock came at the door, they came for the gold. When the knock comes next time, what will they demand? Think about it. I'm Monetary Tales. Thanks for watching.